Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a mystery thriller film, The Ninth Life of DRAX. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a child named Luis, narrating his strange life, or more aptly, his multiple lives like a cat. He had survived several near-fatal accidents since he was born, including spider bites, electrocution, and food poisoning. He even stopped breathing once after screaming for so long, but he had always survived. Because of this, Luis always feels that he's close to death. His mother, Nayeli, once explained to him that cats have 9 lives. She added that Luis had used up 8 of his lives already, and he shouldn't use up any more. But it's inevitable that Luis will come face to face with death again. One day, he and his mother and father went on a cliffside picnic, but something happened, and Luis ended up falling down the cliff into the dark, inky depths of the sea. A monster without a face whispers to him that they will solve the mystery of his life. The investigation is now in full swing regarding what happened to Luis' family. His father, named Peter, had disappeared after the picnic, and the police found his mother by the cliff. Meanwhile, Luis is found by search and rescue, and finally rescued by a helicopter from the ocean. They are able to get him to the hospital, but the child is pronounced dead by the doctor. But while his body is in the morgue, Luis suddenly shows signs of life. He's quickly taken back to the operating room for surgery. He was dead for 2 hours, but miraculously came back to life. However, Luis had broken most of the bones in his body, lost his spleen, and was in a coma. A famous doctor named Pascal, who specializes in pediatric coma, is called to handle Luis' case. He introduces himself to Nayeli and attempts to put her at ease. But Nayeli insists on seeing her son, so Pascal takes her inside the intensive care unit, where Luis' hospital bed is separated from outside contact by a plastic sheet. She places her hand over the sheet to get as close as she can to her son. Luis continues his narration, saying that it wasn't easy for his mother to take care of a strange boy like him. She had even taken Luis to a psychiatrist that he didn't like. The psychiatrist began the session by asking Luis if he had read any good books lately. The child responded that he had read the Bible and found Adam to be stupid and deserving of punishment. Luis made it clear that he didn't respect the psychiatrist and that he thought therapy was useless. In the present, Pascal learns that there have been developments in Luis' case. The police are now chasing Peter because they believe he was the one who pushed Luis off the cliff. The hospital is now placing Luis under heavy guard in case his father comes back. Pascal goes to Luis' bedside and introduces himself to the unconscious child. He explains that Luis is in a coma, and he has a theory that some comatose people actually don't want to wake up or are not ready to. In another therapy session, Luis quickly figured out that the psychiatrist thought he faked all the accidents happening to him because he liked to attract people's attention. Back in the present day, the detective in charge of the case briefs Pascal and his fellow doctor about Luis' background. She tells them that the child had been seeing a psychiatrist who believed that Luis was faking everything for attention. But Pascal reasons out that Luis' accidents date back to when he was still a baby, so it was impossible that he did those injuries to himself. He thinks it's more likely that Luis' father has been physically harming him since he was a baby. Afterward, Pascal goes out for a walk with Nayeli. The child is in a persistent vegetative state, and it's looking more and more unlikely that he will wake up. But Pascal explains that he is known for his radical methods in curing pediatric coma cases. He believes that if he can find a reason to persuade Luis' subconscious mind to wake up, then he can save her son. Back at the beach, the faceless monster urges Luis to tell him about a memory. He tells him about the time he and his father went on a trip to an aquarium where he saw manatees and other sea creatures. However, they also accidentally met Peter's ex-wife, who already had a family of her own. His father asked Luis not to tell this chance encounter to his mother because she is too sensitive. Luis agreed. However, when they arrived home, Luis quickly blurted out their secret. This led to an awful fight between his parents. Luis also discussed this trip with his psychiatrist. He revealed that he knew his parents don't even love each other anymore, and the only reason they're staying together is because of him. He also knew that Peter wasn't his biological father. In the present, Pascal and his wife attend a barbecue party hosted by his fellow doctor. It turns out Nayeli was also invited to this party. Pascal can't help but be drawn to the beautiful Nayeli, even while his wife is beside him, looking jealous. The next day, Nayeli brings Luis' hamster to the hospital, so he will have a friend. Pets aren't allowed at the ward, but since Pascal has a soft spot for Nayeli, he allows her just this one time. Luis' hamsters were also a subject during one of his therapy sessions. He cold-heartedly shared with his psychiatrist that he killed his first hamster by squishing it with a thick encyclopedia. The reason was that Louis believed once a small pet turns two, an owner has the right to kill it. The psychiatrist was surprised by this and assumed that Louis had learned this violence from his father. Not long after that, Natalie ended the therapy sessions for Louise after getting into an argument with the psychiatrist. While on another walk, Natalie explains to Pascal that the psychiatrist had tried to warn her about her husband. She also reveals that she and her husband were already separated, but Peter just came to visit that day at the cliff because it was Louis' birthday. The father was upset that Natalie had ended the therapy sessions, but she didn't tell him the real reason why. That was the point when the father became aggressive. Louis got scared and ran away. Peter chased after him and accidentally pushed Louis off the cliff. Moved by the emotional moment, Natalie and Pascal share an illicit kiss. Right at that moment, Louis suddenly regains consciousness. He calls out for his father and then fades away again. Another flashback reveals the night that his father left when he and Natalie separated. He came into Louis' room and told his child that he will go away for a while because he's making his wife sad. Pascal brings one of Louis' favorite books to the hospital and reads it to him. But he's interrupted when he hears some strange sounds in the empty hospital. He walks out of the ward and sees a trail of dark ink and seaweed in the hallway. Pascal follows the trail inside one of the operating rooms. He discovers a strange creature writhing on the floor. Then Pascal wakes up back at Louis' bedside. He was just dreaming. Days later, Pascal plays squash with the doctor. He reveals that his marriage is nearly over. The doctor already knows because the hospital staff saw him and Natalie kissing. Natalie calls Pascal because she is worried that Louis' father has visited the house. Someone had left a letter addressed to Natalie written in Louis' handwriting. The letter is telling her to stay away from Pascal or else danger will come. Since Louis is in a coma, the police think that this is Peter's doing. In the meantime, Pascal offers Natalie a room at the hospital she can stay in so she will be safe. Pascal also meets with the psychiatrist to ask about Louis. He shows him the handwritten letter, and the psychiatrist confirms that it sounds like something the child would say. Another flashback reveals the events of Louis' birthday. His father had arrived from San Diego with his gift, a new hamster for Louis. He took Louis and Natalie for a drive. That night, Pascal arrives at his office and finds his wife there. She had found another mysterious letter insinuating that Pascal is attracted to Natalie. She throws the letter at Pascal and then leaves, implying that their marriage is officially over. The detective visits the hospital and questions Pascal about Natalie's behavior. She asks whether or not the fragile blonde is headed for a breakdown. Pascal answers that he believes the pressure and stress may be taking a toll on Natalie. The detective further confirms that the missing father is not Louis' biological father and that Natalie had put Louis up for adoption when he was a baby. Pascal goes to the hospital room where Natalie is staying and confronts her about this. She admits that a man had forced himself on her, and this led to the conception of Louis. She has had a hard time trusting men ever since. After her confession, the two succumb to their attraction, and they sleep together. That night, while Louis is asleep, Natalie comes to his bedside and whispers stories to him. She tells him that for years, it was just Louis and Natalie, until one night he got sick again and was rushed to the hospital. She called Peter, who she had known before but only briefly. He was married at the time, but fell in love with Natalie, so he left his first wife and married Natalie instead. Louis does not want to listen to his mother's stories, so the monster beckons to him. Louis goes with the monster inside a cave. Louis' grandmother visits the hospital. She comes face to face with Natalie in the halls, and the two cause a scene. When Pascal gets there, Natalie complains that the grandmother slapped her face. Pascal diffuses the situation and talks to the grandmother herself. She is vocal about her intense dislike of Natalie, saying that she far prefers Peter's first wife. She comments that Natalie is a liar. She lied to Peter and is now lying to Pascal. The two of them are interrupted by the detective, who informs the grandmother that they have found Peter's dead body in a cave below the cliff where Louis fell. Inside his dream consciousness, the faceless monster leads Louis to the cave under the cliff. He reveals through a bedtime story that he had fallen in love with two women, one who is always crying and the other who is always laughing. He thought that the crying one needed him more, so he chose her. But she's insatiable because she always cries, so people will take pity on her. It is then revealed that the faceless monster is Peter, Louis' father. He had died that day during the picnic, and Louis' mind conjured up the monster in his comatose state because he couldn't accept yet that the father he loved is dead. In the dream, the monster accompanied the boy to search the deep sea and explore the mysterious cave. In the hospital, the detective learns that Peter has been in that cave for 2 weeks, which means that it was impossible that he was the one writing the threatening letters. Meanwhile, a nurse informs Pascal that he has been sleepwalking. He fell asleep while reading to Louise, and then he suddenly sleepwalked to the nurse's station. He then pulls out his prescription pad and writes a prescription for Natalie in the same handwriting as the threatening letters. The prescription was for chloroform and insulin, and the specified amount is for a fatal dose. It turns out the police have matched the handwriting in the letters to Pascal. He argues that he was sleepwalking, and it was Louise controlling his actions because the child is trying to tell him something. The detective is skeptical about his theory, but she doesn't consider Pascal a definitive suspect yet. Pascal turns to the psychiatrist for help. He puts Pascal under hypnosis so they can delve deeper into his subconscious. He makes Pascal visualize that he is on an empty beach. Eventually, the psychiatrist is able to communicate with Louise, who is embedded in Pascal's subconscious because of their connection. The psychiatrist then asks Louise what happened during their picnic. Pascal begins to speak in a childlike voice. He recounts that there was a lot of food during his birthday celebration. Natalie had even made him special candy for the occasion. But Peter wanted to have some of the candy, and Natalie refused. She became very defensive about this, and she ended their celebration early. Peter accused Natalie of poisoning the candy and harming their son. Louis was frightened by his parents' arguments, so he ran close to the cliff edge. His mother grabbed him, and Peter warned her that they are close to the edge. Louis attempted to go to his father, and Natalie ended up pushing Peter and killing him. Louis witnessed all this and flung himself off the cliff in a suicide attempt. It's revealed that Natalie has the disease called Munchausen's by proxy, which means she inflicts pain on Louis many times because when her child is sick or injured, she gets the attention she craves from other people. When Louis was a baby and a small child, she would harm him herself by putting poison in his food or electrocuting him. But as Louis grew older, he learned that his mother only loved him when he was injured, so he would harm himself often to receive his love. The psychiatrist ends the hypnosis. Natalie is arrested based on the testimony given by Louise. She is placed under the care of the psychiatrist. However, she is now pregnant with Pascal's child. Pascal has now divorced his wife, and he has to live with his mistake, knowing that the mother of his child is sick and dangerous. Time passes, and Louis is still in a coma. He's still struggling to say goodbye to his father and his subconscious. Peter tells him that he can move on because he's strong enough. After a tearful goodbye, the movie ends with Louis choosing life and waking up in the real world. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.